In this lesson, we're going to talk about dividing polynomials. There are two different methods you could use for dividing polynomials. One of them is long division, and you've been doing long division ever since you were in elementary school. But hence, long division takes a longer time to do the problem. We are going to focus on the new type of division. So this one is going to be the quicker and faster way. So we're really not going to cover long division. We are going to cover synthetic division. So synthetic division will have a little bit different setup than long division. Okay. So I'll scroll here to example number 1. So you're going to take what you're dividing by, and we are dividing by x plus 6. And you're going to set that equal to 0 so that you can figure out what would x equal. So if I do that, I move my 6 over, so x equals -6. So technically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first parentheses part and I'm going to divide it by -6. So here's the different setup. I'm going to take -6 because that's what x equals. And I'm going to put it in a box here off to the side. Now, straight across from that box, I am going to list the coefficients only. So just the coefficients, no letter x's. So what's in front of x squared? So if there's not a number, that's a 1. And then what's in front of x? Well, that's a +5. And what's my plane number? That is 3. So you're listing coefficients only. So now we're going to leave a little bit of space, draw a line. You drop your first term below the line. So my first term is 1. We're going to drop that down. Now the numbers that are below the line, you're going to multiply that by the box number. So 1 times -6 is -6. And write that underneath of the 5. So now you're going to add these two terms together. What's 5 plus -6? That's -1. Now take -1 times -6, and that is +6. Write that underneath the 3, and then add these terms together. 3 plus 6 is 9. Now, how am I going to use these numbers to get my answer? So remember, in the original problem, we started with 1x squared, 5x, and my plane number. So whenever you divide, you are dividing an x out. So that means x squared drops to x drops to plane number, and plane number drops to your remainder. So I put a little r there for remainder. So your final answer would be 1x, or just x, -1. +9 is my remainder, so +9. And you always take your remainder and put it over what you divided the original problem by. And we divided the original problem by x plus 6. Done. So let's try the next one. Okay, I got a minus 5 is what I'm dividing by, so set that equal to 0. So when you solve that, you would get a equals +5. So I'm going to take +5 and put it in a little box. What's the coefficient for a squared? Well, the coefficient for a squared is 1. But here we run into a little bit of problem because you're not going to just write -28, because do you notice that there is not a middle a term? So if you're missing the middle a term, that means you would have 0a and then the plane number -28. So you must remember, if you're ever missing a term, you have to put a 0 in as its placeholder. So leave a little space, So drop your first term, which is 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And negative 28 plus 25 is negative 3. So remember, we started with a squared, a, and plain number. So whenever you divide, you're always dropping your exponents down 1. So a squared becomes a becomes plain number, and plain number becomes remainder. So 1a, or just a, plus 5 minus 3, and remember to put your remainder over what you originally divided by, which is a minus 5. Okay, next problem. I'm dividing by p minus 5, so set that equal to 0. So p would equal positive 5. So we're going to put 5 in our box. List out your coefficients. In front of p to the third is 1, negative 10, 20, and 26. So drop your first term. 1 times 5 is 5. Negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. 20 plus negative 25 is negative 5. And negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25. And 26 plus negative 25 is negative 1. So remember, we started with p to the third, p to the second, p, and plain number. So when I divide, go 1 less. So that becomes p squared, p, plain number, and remainder. So 1p squared, or p squared, minus 5p, minus 5, minus 1, and your remainder goes over p minus 5. Done. Okay, next example. This time, we're going to ask if the binomial is a factor. Okay, in order for it to be a factor, your remainder has to equal 0. Okay, so the only way that a binomial can be a factor is if you do synthetic division and you get the remainder to be 0. So let's go check it out. So x minus 6 equals 0. So x equals positive 6. So I'm going to put 6 into my little box. And then let's list out our coefficients. 1, negative 8, 16, negative 23, negative 6. So drop my 1, multiply for 6, add for negative 2, multiply for negative 12, add for 4, multiply for 24, add for 1, multiply for 6, add for 0. And does everybody see that we're saying the remainder is equal to 0? So since the remainder is equal to 0, yes, it is a factor. Now, the last example that we have is I'm going to give you a 3-dimensional shape, and I'm going to give you 2 of the 3 sides. So first thing, this is a rectangular prism. And you need to know the volume, because up above you'll see the equation I give you says V equals, so V stands for volume. Volume is found by taking length times width times height. So you'll notice that they already multiplied all that out for you, and they got you x to the third minus 2x to the second minus 21x minus 18. So since I give you 2 of the 3 sides, that means we're going to have to do synthetic division twice. Okay, so it doesn't matter which side you pick to start with. I'm just going to pick to start with doing x plus 3. So I set that equal to 0, and I get x equals negative 3. So I'm going to start synthetic division with negative 3. List out your coefficients: 1, negative 2, negative 21, and negative 18. So drop, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. And when you add, you'll notice that your remainder is 0. So every time you're doing one of these problems with missing dimensions here, your remainder should always be 0. If it does not equal 0, you made a mistake somewhere. So now we're going to continue. We're going to do synthetic division again with what we have left. So I'm not starting the problem all the way over with synthetic division. I'm starting with what I have left. So now I'm going to go x minus 6 equals 0. So x equals positive 6. So off to the side of what I have left, I'm just going to put a little box and put 6 there because we're going to do that with 6. So drop my first term, multiply, add, multiply, and remember, you better get a remainder of 0. So my original problem started with x to the third. The first time I did synthetic division, that would drop it from x to the third down to x to the second. The second time I do synthetic division, that drops it from x to the second down to x. So we've got x, plain number, and remainder. So the missing side is x plus 1, or 1x plus 1. And that's it.